Hey folks, Brewcephas here. We're back with another 24-ounce Tuesday. Today we have a Dos Equis 2X, XX Lager Especial. Special lager. Cheers everybody. Good to see you. You know, I've never had any complaints about this garage fridge out here. It stays super crispy, and every now and then, like if I have a beer sitting in there for a few days, I get little ice chunks in it. It's so awesome. So hard to beat. So I cleaned my garage. And I can't tell you how good it feels to have cleaned my garage. And you know, sometimes the best things are born out of bad circumstances. I was telling you guys about when I made the Not Dale's Pale Ale. The brew day video just came out on Saturday. I busted a hose for one of my pumps underneath. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to find the exact part to replace it. I found it, it came in, it was too long. I trimmed it to fit. I fixed the Robo Brew. I've said it before, I'm not a very handy guy. I'm trying to embrace that a little bit more in my life. Trying to fix my own stuff instead of either going and buying new stuff, which I've done a lot in the past, or going to get it fixed. We have YouTube. Watch a YouTube video, read some tutorials, watch some tutorials, try to fix it yourself. Some things, of course, not all things, unless you're far more mechanically minded than myself. So I got it fixed. None of the electronics were damaged. I put 3 gallons of water in the Robo Brew after I screwed the bottom back on. Turned on my burners, both my 1,000 and 500 watt burners worked. It was heating the water up. It heated it up from like 72 to 110, and I called it good there. Turned the pump on, let the pump run for a few minutes. Everything worked perfectly. I'm back. Man, I feel like I just said I'm back, and then I felt like I was gonna have to reinvent the wheel completely when the Robo Brew went down. Because I really expected those electronics to be broken, but they weren't. So, cheers everybody. And you know, one thing often leads to another. Once I fixed the Robo Brew, I was feeling super good about myself, super good about my brewery. So I thought, what the hell? Why not clean my brew space? So now, instead of being tucked back in the little corner, I'm not tucked at all. I've got free reign. I've got plenty of room to brew. I got plenty of room for activities, guys and gals, and I couldn't feel better about it. One thing is going to continue to lead to another. I need to organize my workbench. I need to dust these shelves, because that's nasty. And only good things on the horizon. Hope there was no mouse shit in that. So like I said, I dry hopped the Not Dale's Pale Ale. We were through the first couple days of fermentation. It slowed down a lot. So I went in and I went ahead and added those 2 ounces of Cascade hops. Okay, hopefully we'll get some good aromas from them. They were, what, 4.8% alpha. Gonna keep them in there for 14 days, and then I'm gonna keg that boy. Can't wait. Can't wait. I mean, you remember, we only came out to 1046 on that beer. We were going for 1057, so it's not gonna be 5.9%, but if we can keep it in the 4s, I mean, you know, it's a pale ale, so you'd expect it to be a little bit heavier than a lager. I mean, the hops will add some, you know, it'll be different in character than a lager anyway. But what is this? Probably about 4.2%. So yeah, as long as we're a little bit heavier than a Dos Equis, and we have that nice hop aroma, nice hop bitterness, it's gonna be a good beer. I'm really looking forward to it. And truth be told, this time of year, I'd rather have a nice lighter drinker than something heavier. Now don't get me wrong, I would have rather hit the 1057 and had the beer that I remembered, but it's homebrew, you know. And we're gonna talk about that in a second, about not sweating the small stuff again, about having fun when you brew, or else what's the point? Now would be a good time to talk about The Complete Joy of Home Brewing by Charlie Papazian. Most of you probably know this guy. If you're brand new to home brewing, you might not know about this book, but it's definitely an old classic, a staple among home brewers. Warning, this book, if loaned, may never be returned. You've been warned. You know, I love the book in itself. It tells you, it goes very in depth about everything you need to know as a beginning home brewer and as an advanced home brewer. There's an appendix back here for advanced home brewing, for the practical home brewer. But as much as like a cult classic this book is, I don't know what else to call it, a kind of a classic among home brewers, I would argue that the introduction to The Complete Joy of Home Brewing is the best part about the book. I love the technical knowledge, but in the introduction, Charlie Papazian really lays down his philosophy, and in 2 words you could just say, don't worry. So here's how he begins. I've had plenty of time to reflect on my 44 years of continued home brewing. All that has changed and so much that has sustained. I've learned to recognize two constants. One, traditions of beer brewing are always evolving. So your New England IPAs, your hazy IPAs, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that hasn't been a thing for very long. And in fact, I was talking to one of the brewers at one of the craft breweries here in OKC, and we were laughing. I said, wait, we spend so much time and effort to get our beers clear, and then you just go make a hazy and say, like, I meant to make it that way? And he laughed, you know, and it was kind of like all you have to do to make a hazy beer is nothing. So it was kind of funny. The second thing Papazian says, he said he's learned to recognize 2 constants. The second is that the best thing you can do for yourself and your home brewing, I repeat, the best thing you can do for yourself and your home brewing is to relax, not worry, and have a home brew. I've made some bad home brews before. We won't talk about them. You know, some are reserved for the yard drain. Not many, but I've had some home brews that came out not very good, okay, and I drank all of them. And I wasn't worried after I drank a few of those. You know, they taste better the more you drink, and it's really not that big of a deal. If you're trying to impress your buddies, that's one thing. I would say don't get into the hobby to impress anyone, but I mean, it's fun to have other people drink your beers and be like, man, that's a damn good beer. That's better than anything I've had around here lately. I've said that about my own beer. I've said, wow, I got a keg of this at home. I couldn't buy this. I like this better than anything. And that's the cool thing about home brewing, is you can brew to your own tastes and make what you enjoy. He goes on, Mr. Papazian, He says, in the earlier days, I discovered how intimidating homebrewing could be to the uninitiated, how nervous and anxious people were about entering into the mystic world of beer making. It seems like a mystic world. There's a lot of chemistry involved, and the deeper you dive, the more you'll like at least hear about the chemistry if you don't learn about it. And it can all be very overwhelming, but if you trust what other people say works, you don't have to know a lot about the chemistry. Maybe you want to, and that's great. Dig in, craft your beers, tweak them, make exactly what you were setting out to make. That's awesome. That's not how I do it. I kind of fire from the hip, I shoot out a pale ale, and I most of the time hit a pale ale, and it's good. So I don't aim too precisely, I guess you could say. And then relax, don't worry, have a homebrew. The last thing I'll read out of his introduction, he says, I know homebrewing your first batches of beer, like doing anything totally new and risky, creates anxiety. Supporting each other with a simple offering of homebrew and relax, don't worry, have a homebrew is just the formula you need to go on and succeed by doing. And that's the biggest part, succeed by doing. It seems risky because it takes a long time to brew a beer. I mean, relatively speaking. So when you brew your beer and you put it in your house and you're waiting, it feels like you're waiting the whole time. Especially when you've never made beer before and you're like, is it gonna be good? Is it ruined? And I'm spending all this time waiting. And especially if you're bottling and it's gonna be another couple weeks before the beer's carbonated, it can easily take you 2 months to make a beer. And you'd really just like it to turn out right. And that's where the stress comes from, I think, a lot of the time. That and some of the instructions are maybe, if not a little convoluted. You have to be doing some things to prepare while doing other things that need to be done immediately. So like maybe I need to be preparing my ice bath while I'm adding my last hop addition. So you kind of have to, I make checklists. I wouldn't try to do it without a checklist. I've used this checklist a couple of times. But you can see how I lay out every step. I see what's coming up. And half of doing a thing, more than half of doing a thing, is just understanding and seeing it. If you can see it, you can be it. Okay, and of course that goes beyond home brewing. Another thing I'm excited about. Cheers everybody. We're about halfway through this beer. We're probably more than halfway through the video, but about halfway through this cold Dos Equis on this hot day. Actually, it's not as hot as it has been. I can get to my thermometer now. That's crazy. Okay, yeah, it's 92. It's been about 95. The other day, my son and I went to the lake hunting cicadas, and it was 111 degrees. So yeah, it feels pretty good out here. And I didn't have a cold beer out there. He just scared the hell out of me. I looked over and he was peeking around the corner. I saw one eye peeking at me. Whew. Relax, don't worry, have a homebrew. Okay, so another thing I'm really excited about. Let me show you. I recently ordered some hops from Yakima Valley. And when you order anything from Yakima Valley or a lot of other beer companies, make sure you really dig through the package. I was about to throw it away, but then I said, wait a minute. There's probably a sticker in there somewhere. So I dug through it, and sure enough, and maybe it's because I've dealt with Yakima Valley before, but most of the time, when a beer company sends you something, or brewing supply company sends you something, they include a sticker, which is part of the homebrewing culture, right? So 3 things they sent me. Actually 1 thing, 3 varieties. I told you I plan on making hop samplers here this coming weekend. That is still the plan. All systems are currently go. I got on Yakima Valley's website because I love their company. And I ordered 3 interesting types of hops, or types of hops that I've always kind of wondered about but never tried. And the first one is the Mount Hood, 4% alpha. The Zappa, after Frank Zappa, 6.6% alpha. We could do something nice and indie with that. And then the El Dorado. I went to high school in Kansas, so you might call it El Dorado if you're from Kansas. But if you're on the Golden Road and you're looking for the Golden City, to you it's probably El Dorado at 13.8% alpha. So obviously I'm gonna have to add far less of the El Dorado than I have to add of these other guys, because I'm gonna try to maintain the same amount of bitterness. I'm gonna make 3 little DME beers using 1 hop per each, and using these glass jugs back here. Obviously I need to clean this guy, but this is mostly from my sanitizer, I think. I got 3 of these. I'm gonna use 1 for each of the hop samplers. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get into Brewcephas and do a little math. I'll add less of the El Dorado. I'll add more of the Mount Hood at 4%, and then a little less of the Zappa than I do the Mount Hood, to come out with the same number of IBUs, or at least close for each of them, so I'm not overwhelmed by one and get an inaccurate sense of what the hop is and what it tastes like. Okay, and then maybe I'll decide to make a beer, design a beer in Brewcephas. I always call it Brewcephas, it's Brewcephas, with one of these, or maybe all of these hops, who knows. I noticed I had 1 pickle left in the jar in the old beer fridge, and I was gonna add it to my beer, but I don't think I could get a pickle in there very easily. It wouldn't be very fun, I'd mangle it. That's okay. Cheers, everyone. Wish I had a little lime, or a little lime beer salt. At any rate, we lack nothing. A wise man once said, there's time for everything you need to do. So it goes with brewing. We have everything we need to brew. If you don't, go get a bucket with a lid and an airlock, a few gallons of water, buy some of the cheaper yeast. I know you can find it even cheaper, but Sap Ale, USO5, USO4, buy a little packet. Don't worry about a yeast starter. Get you some hops, maybe an extract kit. You know, you might spend 40, 50 bucks. But if the hobby is important to you, if it's something you really want to get into, spend 50 bucks on that equipment. You can boil your wort on your stovetop, pour it into the bucket, and then basically you're not going to boil the whole 5 gallons. I think as you boil like 2 gallons, if you don't have the capacity to boil the whole 5 gallons. 2.5 gallons, you add your hops and all your stuff, your extracts, dry malt, liquid malt, and then at the end you pour it in your bucket and then you just top it up to the 5 gallons with water. Okay, so it's a little bit easier. It doesn't really require a whole lot. Just watch a video, watch someone make a liquid malt or just a kit beer and see what it looks like, and then that's gonna make your life significantly easier on brew day. Because when my buddy and I brewed our first extract beer, we were looking at instructions and just making it way harder than it needed to be. Okay, so you can make it hard or you can make it easy. Some people like the hard way, and maybe for some people the hard way isn't hard. For me, the hard way is very hard. Even though I brew all grain most of the time, I found a way to make it simple because I just dove in and did it one time, and it turned out really good. The Knottdale's Pale Ale. Honestly, I was so drunk at the end of that brew day that I somehow just waltzed my carboy out to the fridge, stuck it in there, said screw it, left it overnight because it was already too late. I wasn't gonna sit and cool that thing down and pitch the yeast, and came back out the next day, pitched the yeast, and that beer turned out awesome. Okay, and I didn't cool it down in 20 minutes. I threw it out in the side yard because it was, I think it was almost fall. I don't remember what I did. Either put it out in the side yard or put it in the fridge and it cooled down overnight. I woke up and I pitched the yeast and it was great. Maybe it's not always, maybe that was good fortune. Maybe it doesn't always work out that way. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can do a lot of stuff they say absolutely for the love of God do not do. And it turns out good. Okay? So do what you think, do what you have to do. Cheers. Got one more little sip left. I always tend to linger at goodbye. It's not goodbye. It's see you next time. See you on Saturday, and we'll make up some hop samplers. Cheers, everybody. Good to see ya.